Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing, as well as analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up the past 24 or so hours. Hopefully, you're having an amazing day. We have lots of stuff to get through in today's video. I'd like to start things out, though, with the second generation of RDNA, specifically the highest end SKUs for the RX 6000 series, as we may actually finally have some information concerning the release date for these SKUs, as well as an update for what's actually going on in general. And this comes to us via Chip Hell. And one of the forum members there, WJM47196, I'm just going to refer to them as WJ for the rest of this video so that I don't go insane, has actually a really decent history when it comes to leaks. For example, they leaked the fact that we would see a Polaris 30 series of GPUs, which of course turned out to be the RX 590, which was admittedly not exactly an exciting GPU in that it was basically the RX 580, albeit cranked all the way to oblivion. But according to what they are stating about Big Navi, the information about the performance that we've seen thus far with the individual SKUs is not accurate. And this is because the actual PCB of the cards themselves is not finalised. Indeed, according to what they've stated here, AIB partners have not received the finalised design resource. Now, this is very interesting because most likely it would mean that the big RDNA GPUs will not release until October, possibly November at the earliest, which means Nvidia, which we'll discuss in a moment in terms of their release schedule, will probably be on store shelves before AMD. Of course, being earlier is not necessarily better, because let's say that they do release a month or two earlier than AMD, people may just decide, you know what, I'm going to wait and see what AMD are doing, unless of course you're a big Nvidia fan or have like a G-Sync monitor, or you just need to buy your hardware now. But there is something kind of weird going on, because there's also a statement that these cards have 16 gigabytes of RAM. However, a couple of websites are reporting that this is on a 384-bit bus, which is kind of weird, honestly. It just doesn't work. That would basically mean that if this is true, you would have either 12 or 24 gigabytes of RAM, depending on the densities. If, on the other hand, it is the 16 gigabytes, then it would either be 256-bit or, well, I guess technically it could be like double that. So it's kind of odd regarding this, but in the thread that I'm reading anyway, with the original statement, I can't see a reference to the 384, but it may just be the way that my machine translation using Google is maybe not, maybe converting one of the figures or something like that. And honestly, I believe that the performance figures of RDNA 2 are going to be drastically higher, if only for the fact that, well, for one, we did see that mysterious benchmark. Now, this, I still believe, is probably legitimate from earlier this year, but I do believe it was a very early sample. I don't think it was indicative of what we will have for the final production runs of the GPUs. And there's also, of course, AMD themselves stating that the reference designs of the RX 6000 series, and they're just calling it RDNA 2, is supposedly considerably better compared to what we've seen with, of course, the RX 5000 series and Polaris. I'm sure most of you would agree that it's not exactly been the ideal cooler for those GPUs. Indeed, when I reviewed the RX 5000 series, I can't remember if it was late last year, early this year, I basically said that the card's fantastic, the RX 5000, 5700 non-XT, but at the time the only GPU I could get was the AMD reference design, which they sent me directly. I couldn't get a custom AIB design, and I basically said that I would recommend that people wait and then pick up one of the custom designs because obviously temperatures would be better and so on. With that said, I do think that the RX 6000 series are going to be a lot better in that respect. I'm going to leave the versus Nvidia stuff for a moment, because we're actually going to be talking about Nvidia's supposed release date in a second. So I think that just makes more sense to kind of tally things up. I'd rather finish off the AMD information, because AMD have confirmed again that Zen 3 is still on track, and Ryzen 4000 will launch later this year, although of course AMD are not providing a release date as yet. And this is thanks to statements on AMD's corporate blog by AMD's Rick Bergman. So what's next for AMD in the PC space? Well, I can't share too much, but I can say our high-performance journey continues with the first Zen 3 client processor, which is on track to launch later this year. I will wrap things up by saying that you haven't seen the best of us yet, end quote. And he, by the way, is the Executive Vice President of both computing and graphics over at AMD, so it's not like he doesn't know what AMD are working on. And now, on to the Nvidia information. And this primarily focuses upon the release date of the RTX 30 series, as there are, well, actually conflicting pieces of information, as you would expect, for the release date of the RTX 30 series GPUs. Overclocking.com have recently stated that they believe the RTX 30 series will launch in August, but it would be in a limited quantity, and furthermore, we would have to wait for AIBs to release their GPUs. Just to be clear, this means that we will see the AIB custom models come later, and if you want to purchase an RTX 30 series right now, so let's say you're building a system and you really need a new GPU, well, you're going to have to buy one of Nvidia's own cards. Now, rather interestingly, they seem very, very confident in their information, because they're stating that they've, quote, double sourced it. But this is actually at odds with several other reports which are floating around. The Chinese website IT Home have provided a release date as the 17th of September. YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead is also stating September, and Igor's Lab has said that mass production of these GPUs has not started yet. It's not going to happen until sometime in August, with some type of media event taking place in September. Now, honestly, I would have imagined if mass production had have started at this point, we would have had some type of leak. And certainly no journalists have received their GPU, as of I know anyway. I think September is most likely. It's what I'm hearing whispered, but no solid information, to be honest with you. And it's going to be very curious, because what we do know is that RTX 2080, as well as the Ti and the 2070, have basically started to have their stock deplete, because Nvidia have started to discontinue the production of those GPUs. Indeed, I know as a reviewer that the cards are kind of coming towards the end of their life, because I'm not really being asked if I want to review new versions of them. It's kind of like, yeah, we've got this GPU, and generally speaking, if the cards have like some legs, let's say 6 months, there will still be a push of, hey, would you like to take a look at this GPU? Or we notice you haven't looked at, I don't know, an RTX 2080 Super or whatever. Would you like to look at ours? Even if the cards have been out for several weeks or several months, in fact, if AIBs know that there's still quite a long way for those cards to go in terms of release to the next, they will still push you to take a look at cards. But that hasn't happened really with this particular, with the RTX 20 series, in a while. So that does tell me that AIBs are starting to realise that the 20 series is being, or will be soon, phased out. And even EVGA themselves have stopped promoting the RTX 2080 Ti. Even if you're just a general user, you'll probably notice that Nvidia haven't really been pushing it as hard compared to what they were. You know, there was often advertisements that they were running, or at the very least tons of posts pushing the power of the 2080 or whatever. And that hasn't really happened so much recently. So I think that the new series coming in does make sense from that perspective. It's going to be fascinating, though, what happens in terms of the performance of these GPUs. Because the rumour has it that they have, of course, the new power connector, and this is apparently confirmed by Gamers Nexus. And if that's true, and we do see the GPU consume up to 400 watts of power, that's not a small amount. That's a lot of energy that's being sucked up. I would love to see what the power consumption figures are for Nvidia and AMD's respective flagships, especially when overclocking is concerned. I will be very curious to see what actually happens in terms of the power consumption and heat outputs of these two GPUs. I will be very interested. Perhaps the big thing for Nvidia is that we have DLSS 3 and other tech that's probably going to be coming in with Ampere. But, yeah, for me, of course, the big question is, can AMD get their drivers sorted out for the RX 6000 series? Because, as we all know, AMD have had a lot of black screen issues, which was something that I can't recreate, honestly. I've tried multiple times, but never had a problem yet. I still, up until recently, people were writing to me telling me that they were having problems with the GPUs. Fortunately, this seems to have been fixed largely with a lot of driver updates. However, I do have a friend with an RX 5700 anniversary, and no matter what he does, he has issues. And this is with running DDU and all this other stuff. It just doesn't seem to make a difference. And then any Nvidia GPU he runs, absolutely no problem. So it's going to be interesting to me what AMD does with their drivers and how they change them, especially with the rumours, of course, of like a DLSS-like technology for the RX 6000 series. As for Nvidia, I really hope that the prices of the GPU is very competitive. And now I'm on to mosey on over to the PlayStation 5. Despite all eyes being on Microsoft for the obvious event, which is going to be taking place tomorrow, and stick with us by the way as we're going to be doing full coverage of that tomorrow, both Amy and I. And I'm really excited actually for what Microsoft are going to be revealing. I think it's going to be an awesome event. According to Robert Scenario, we will actually be seeing a PlayStation event taking place 6th of August, and this is going to be showing a plethora of different things, apparently, and it's going to take place at 1 PM PT. Now, I have tried to find some information about this. Robert is an ex-PR and chief editor at 4news.it, so it's not like he doesn't have industry sources. So I tried to find out more about this and whether this was actually true, so I reached out to a couple of people. Now, one person told me that from what he understood, Sony were having an event which would be taking place in August, and it would be some type of basically announcement of the console's price, as well as the release date, as well as perhaps reveal a couple of other games, maybe launch games and maybe some games which would come out later, but pretty much revealing the launch lineup. However, I was speaking to another individual, and they think that in later August, once again I don't have an exact date here unfortunately, but I was told by the end of August, Sony will be doing a teardown of the PlayStation 5, and this will be including detailing the features of the APU, but also a teardown of the console showing the cooling solution. Now, I don't know if those two events are linked. I would imagine they're probably not, which potentially means that either one of those individuals is wrong and the teardown isn't happening in August, or Sony will be holding two events in August. One thing there's a couple of thoughts. One, Microsoft have their Hot Chips conference. I believe that's in August, and that is going to be detailing a lot of the stuff for the Xbox. By the way, definitely stick with us because I'm going to be doing a really in-depth analysis when the console manufacturers actually really detail the architecture of their systems. And the second thing is that, in general, Sony have liked to separate the technical side of stuff, at least with this generation, and even, to be honest, the PS4 to a degree, and the game stuff. Like, they handled the road to PS5 event very differently from the games. Now, my personal feeling, because Sony himself said that they would be doing a teardown of the PS5, it makes sense for it to take place in August. What I'm about to say is speculation based upon what we're hearing, but this makes sense to me. We would get a release date of the console with the first event, and this would also include like the game lineup and stuff like that, and they will then basically say that the console pre-orders will take place, I'm just going to say September or maybe late August. I'm not saying that this is true, I'm just once again speculating here. Then we'll have the teardown, and then after that the pre-orders will go live, and then you can pre-order the system. That would make some level of sense to me, but once again, I am stressing that I don't know how accurate this information is, because the info that I got in terms of these events is not from my usual sources. So I would take it with a massive truckload of salt. I'm way less confident in this information than a lot of the stuff I've said about the PS5, but that's what I was told. I also suspect that some of what Sony are going to be doing is going to be very contingent upon what Microsoft are doing. And honestly, I am certain 100% at this point, speaking to multiple people, that Sony and Microsoft both have games which will not be revealed in their upcoming conferences. Basically, they have stuff coming in the pipeline. I think the next couple of months in gaming is going to be really exciting. As a PC gamer, as a console gamer, I think it's going to be amazing. With all of that said though, thank you very much for watching the video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.